Alright, excellent. Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's tutorial. Today we are going to be going over how to make the menu system. So basically how we make a menu that you can click on, that you can interact with, and you can go from different rooms. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 rooms into the game. So if you look down here, I have these 3 rooms, and each of these rooms is going to be 2525 by 2160. So I have this room that's called RM Die. This is the room we're going to go to if the player dies. We're going to have RM Menu, which is the same width and height. This is going to be the menu room. And then we're going to have RM underscore win, which is the room we go to if the player wins. And I'm just going to show you how to make a menu system, a very, very simple menu system. Like, there's lots of ways to do this. This is probably the simplest way. I'm going to show you how to do it so that you can make a simple menu for your game. So if we run this, we should be able to see once it builds here. Okay, so as you can see, right now we are in the menu room, and we can see the title, and then we have this button here that we can hover over, and then we're going to click on that. As you can see, we have the game running here. And if we wait a little bit, we can lose, and then we'll go to the lose room. So I'm going to skip ahead until that happens. Alright, so as you can see, we are now in this room that says you lost in it. And we can hit retry, and that'll just take us back into the game room. Or we can hit go back to menu, and now we are here at the menu. So that's how it's going to work. So, first, we're going to make all these rooms, right? RM menu, RM die, RM win. Next, we're going to make 3 objects that control everything that goes on in these rooms. So we're going to make a obj menu object, and we don't really need a sprite for it. RM die object, we don't need one for that one either, and an obj RM win object. So in our menu room, we're going to bring in our win object, just like that. We're going to put the RM die object into our die room, and we're going to put the obj menu object into this room. And then what we need to do is we need to double click on room RM underscore setup, and we need to change the room that we go to this RM underscore menu. Now before, what we had is this would just go straight to RM underscore game, but now we want the game to load up in the menu, so we're just going to change this to RM underscore menu. Perfect. So that's all functioning just like that. So we're going to save that, and then what we're going to do is let's go to the menu, and I can show you how I set it up. So basically, I'm going to set up this this variable that holds the game's title. So this is the game's title. As you can see, I have this /n in it, which is basically just a line break. So if you want to do something fancy with the title, you can do it there. You can just name it whatever. I can just change this name on the fly. And then play button. So this is going to be the button we use to go into the game room. So what this is actually done with is this is done using something called a constructor. And basically, there are better ways to do this. There's something called flex panels in Gamemaker now that is a better way of doing this. But I used a constructor to basically create a button. And this button is something that it basically just runs all the code itself. It's as if it is an object, but it's not really an object. So let's go over how to create that. So in our script setup, we're going to create a new script, right click, create script, the one with a little scroll thing on the side of it. And we're going to create this. So constructors are basically like a lightweight object that holds data. So its main purpose is holding data. And this one can actually run a couple of functions. So to create a constructor, we need to write function button, and then we want to decide where the button goes in the room. So we're going to write underscore x, underscore y, and then we want the title for the button. So we're just going to write underscore title. And then this variable right here basically decides if the center of the button is the top left or the center of the button is the middle. I can demonstrate that a little bit later. But for now, you can just write this. And then this function, this is what the button is going to run when it's been clicked on. So basically what we do is we save this as its own XX and YY values. So now we know the position. Now we know if it's centered or not. Now we know what its title is. And then what this does is this sets the font up, the font that we're going to be using. And then these two functions right here, they basically get the width and height in pixels of whatever string that we used. And one thing that I should go over, so I created a new font for this. Basically what I did is I duplicated this helper font, and then I changed the size to 60. And that's my F underscore menus font. So you might find when you're running your game that the font is really, really tiny. So what I would do for that is just make a new font, change it, and make sure that it's a size that you like. So now we have width and height set up. And then we're just going to write func as underscore function. So this constructor can run a couple of scripts. So we're just going to use this data that's already in the constructor, and we're going to provide it with some inputs, and then it's going to run this code basically really easily. So first what we're going to check is we're going to check if a point in space is inside the button's rectangle. So this is basically just checking like, okay, this is if the button is centered. So the X, the Y that we're passing in, and then basically the width divided by 2, YY, and X plus the width divided by 2. So that's like centered in a rectangle if you're imagining it. Then we're going uncentered, so underscore X, underscore Y, the same numbers that we're passing in, and then it just checks from the top left corner to the bottom right, just like that. And basically, depending on if we're centered or not, we're either going to return this centered value. So this is just a check to see, like, in a centered rectangle, is this point inside the rectangle? And then if it's not centered, we're going to return the uncentered position. So, like, if the rectangle is not centered, if the rectangle's top left corner is at XX and YY, then we're going to see if the point is in that. And that basically just means, so like this is going to return either true or false, depending on what these come out to be. So then we're going to need to draw the button. So we're going to write draw this button as a function, and we're going to write the color that we want. So we're going to set up the color to the correct thing. And then this is basically how the text is centered. So we can do FA underscore left, and then it'll draw the text from the left side. Or draw set highline FA underscore center, which will draw the text like it'll center it in the middle of the X and Y. And then we're going to set the font to the menu font that we set up. And then this is basically just going to draw a rectangle around the button, just so that we know, like, hey, this is a button. And this is basically going to use, like, if it's centered or not, it's going to use, like, the same kind of dealio. So it's, like, very similar to what's up here. And then we're going to draw the text at XX underscore YY, and then the title that we set up earlier. So that's all done. And then these just reset everything. So we reset the drawing color, and we reset the font horizontal alignment. And then finally, function button clicked. So basically we're going to check if mouse check button MB underscore left, then script execute, and this will just execute whatever code that we passed in with the function. So now let's go look back at our menu object and let's see that running in real time. So what do we do? So we're going to put this button in the middle of the room, halfway down the room plus 200 pixels. We're going to call it start game, obviously. We're going to say that is centered. And then for this, we're going to create a function with this right here. And then everything in the brackets is the code that the button is going to run. So we're going to say room underscore go to rm underscore game. And then we'll end those brackets. And then we'll end with a parenthesis. And then we have created a new button. So just to give you another example of how this works, I'm going to make a new one. We're going to say, instead of play button, this will be quit button. And basically, we're going to move it down by 600 pixels. We're going to change the title of the button to quit. We're going to say it's centered. And we're going to say game underscore end. So this will basically quit the game. So now, how do you put it in? So basically, this menu object is going to draw this text, and then it's going to draw and run these two buttons. So we're only going to need a draw event for this. So we're going to reset the color. We're going to reset the font. We're going to set the horizontal alignment of the text. This is where we're going to draw the menu. So you can feel free to play around with these variables a little bit. And then we're basically going to go draw underscore text at x, y, the game title. And so that's all of this. So now we're drawing the title of the game. Now you can totally like draw a sprite and like switch this out with a sprite, like draw a sprite and then have a sprite for like the game's title, and that would also look good. You know, just like a draw sprite underscore x underscore y SBR underscore game title. But I didn't bother making a game title for this, so this is just what we're gonna have. Then we're gonna reset the horizontal alignment of the text. So this part just draws the game title. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw the button. So play button. And then what we're going to need to do, so if we look at this constructor here. So basically, we're going to run this thing's scripts inside it. And we do that with the period. So as you can see, play button dot SCR hovering button. So basically we're going to pass in the mouse X and Y to this. So it's just going to check like, okay, is the mouse X and Y? Is the mouse X and Y inside the button? And if so, we're going to draw the button yellow. And we're going to see if the button is clicked. So basically that's going to go, okay, button clicked if we're being hovered and mouse check button MB left is pressed. Then we're going to run the code that has been stored neatly right here. See how that works? And so we're going to add this. We're going to add another button. Oh, also this else basically just draws the button in white so that we can always see it. But in this case it's yellow, in this case it's white. So we're going to add one. So this quit button. And we're going to change all this to quit button, quit button, quit button, quit button. Perfect. Draw quit button. And now, if we run our game, so as you can see, there's the start game that will take us into the rm underscore game. And then we have this quit button. So we can click this, and just like that, the game closes. So perfect. The menu is now running perfectly. Perfectly fine. So now what we need to do is we need to hook up the rm underscore die and the rm underscore win levels. So how are we going to do that? So basically, the rm underscore die is going to be very, very simple to how we set up the menu. So basically, we're gonna use two new buttons here. So the menu button. So we're gonna create a new button, put in the middle of the room that says go back to menu. It's gonna be centered. And for the function part, this code, we're gonna say room go to rm underscore menu, and that will go to the menu room. And then for the restart button, we're gonna set the title to retry. We're gonna draw it plus 200, centered function, room go to, and we're gonna say rm underscore game. So that will just take us right back into the game, the room with the game in it. And then obj rm underscore win. Wait, no, sorry. Let me finish up this obj room die. So here, keyboard check. We're gonna delete this. This was old code. We don't actually need a step event. As you can see, this is set up very similarly. So basically, this is the same kind of setup we had for the menu object. And we're gonna draw the text that says you lost, just to let the player know that they lost. And then for the menu button, we're gonna basically do the same kind of block of code. So menu button, if hovering, draw it yellow, and run the clicked code. Otherwise, draw the button in white. And then the restart button, same deal. Hovering button, draw the button, button clicked, draw this button. So you can see all of these are restart button, and all of these are menu button. And now all of that works. So that is the die object, and then the win object is going to go very similar. So I'm just put a single button in this one that says go back to menu. So plus 400, title, go back to menu, true, function, and then room underscore go to rm underscore menu. Perfect. This step event is also old. We don't need it. My bad. And then let's see. So for this part, I'm going to set the color to white. I'm going to set the font to f underscore menus, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to simply draw the text you win on the screen so the player knows that they won. And then we're going to draw the menu button the same way we did the other one. So draw this button, button clicked, draw this button, see white. So that's basically how it works. But we're going to have to do a little bit more work because right now, as long as this win object is inside the win room, as long as this die object is inside room die, it's going to work just fine. But we need to actually get into those rooms. So the current way we have it set up is that when you die, nothing happens. The game just immediately resets. So we have to go and change that. So let's go to game. And we're going to the create event of game. And we're going to scroll down, and there should be this region lose game. So this is the code that we run when we lose the game. So I'm going to say lost to true. Alarm 0 equals a 60. So that means that basically at alarm 0 60, we restart things. So previously, we had something that was like room underscore restart. I like to avoid using this function where I can. Instead, what we're going to do now is we're just going to go to the die room. And then the player will realize in the die room that they died. And then what we're going to do is in the step event, we need to check if we've won, right? Well, we know that there's this time. So time is equal to 0. So we know that at some point that time is going to be the hours that the player has passed in the game is going to be more than 6, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this time that we already have set up, and we're going to divide it by 3,600 to get the hours. And then if the hours is more than or equal to 6, then we are going to go to the win room. And so basically we can check that just right now. So if we set that to 20 and we hit run, start game, the time is going to increase very, very rapidly, which is good for us. So we're just going to wait here until we finally hit the 6-hour mark. Perfect. So as we can see, you win, and we can go back to main menu. Perfect. So that should be the win and lose states working. So now we have different rooms that we can go into. We have buttons that take us from room to room, and basically the game is looking a lot better. Now you may be asking me like, oh, there's no night selection option. Well, that's actually really easy to set up. All we would have to do is create another room, like room menu, and we could call it IM underscore night underscore selection. And then we could make our own object for that. And that object could have multiple buttons that take us to multiple nights. What you could do for that is you could duplicate this game object, this game room, and you could set it up so that there's one for night 1, one for night 2, one for night 3, etc., etc. And then once you have that, you'll be able to go to each room just at a click of a button and select different rooms at a click of a button. So really this system is very easy to implement and to set up, and it is pretty expandable. Like you can have as many menus and stuff like that as you can conceivably want. And then of course, if you wanted to add sound effects to these buttons, you could totally go for it. Here in this button clicked, you could do something like audio underscore play underscore sound, and here's where you would play some kind of sound effect, so like a button clicking sound, just as an example. So that is what we have for today. I will not lie, I am kind of getting tired of making these kind of tutorial videos, and they haven't been doing as well. I'm thinking of pivoting to maybe a different series of tutorials, or maybe more game analysis videos. We will see what the future holds. But I definitely want to add in one more tutorial video for Fnaf that will show you how to make things like foxy mechanics and other AI, and how to like add more rooms and stuff to your game. Basically, I want to make sure that the last tutorial has everything that you need to know to not just make the game that I made, but make the game that you want to make. So that is still in the future. I have no idea when it'll be done. But this menu system is finally done, and your game is just that slightly more completed. So thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely evening, old sport.